Hey friends, here is our last video. This video is all about how to back your hoop. So if you know how to do that, you don't need to watch this, but if you need help, this is the place you want to come to. So you need an iron or something that's just going to produce heat to get rid of your pin marks. If you're using a different method, go ahead and follow your method as far as getting rid of your pin marks. It might be the water soluble pen, it might be the water soluble paper, so you might need to wash something, and of course let it dry before you follow along with the rest of these steps. But for this video purpose, we're going to do our pilot friction pin, how to get rid of those pin marks. So iron, scissors, hot glue, and your felt circle. If you just have felt and you still need to cut it, you can simply just put, I had to think, I'm like, wait a minute, how do I cut my circles? I don't normally trace my hoop, but you can trace your hoop on there. It might be a little bit hard with the fabric inside, but you can trace it. Oh, you can do that. You can kind of tuck this under, put it on top of your felt, trace your circle, and then that way you can cut it out. That took me a second. Okay, so I have my iron, and I'm going to keep my hoop. Oh, my glue gun and my iron are all mixed up. Okay, I'm going to keep my fabric in my hoop, and I'm going to remove the pin marks. I'm just going to gently place my iron on. My iron has a steam function, and so I like to use that. I'm not really like pushing down. I'm just kind of like placing it, steaming, picking up, steaming, going all the way across. And this is always so satisfying with the white flowers, especially because those black pin marks you still see under the white flowers when you're stitching, and so it just feels dirty. So whenever those pin marks come off, it's just like, it's just like a sigh of relief that it looks so nice and so pretty. So now, since I have taken away all my pin marks, you can hold it up close to you, look, make sure you really have gotten rid of all of them. And this is when, after you've removed your pin marks, if you realize, oh, I didn't finish the line in my R, I didn't connect a stitch right here, or there's something that needs more stitching, we do the iron with our fabric in our hoop so that if we miss something, we can go back and keep stitching without it being a problem. It just makes it really easy for touching up any spots. So I am going to take a second, look closely. I don't see that I've missed anything, and I am happy with how things are. Okay, so the next step is you want to make sure your fabric is perfectly centered in your hoop. If right now it is not perfectly centered, loosen the nut at the top, pull your fabric out, readjust it. You might have to, because we've been stitching for so long, you might have some pretty deep indentations on your fabric, so you might need to iron those out a little bit so that it's not a problem when you go to readjust your hoop. I just lost my train of thought, but okay, so if you need to readjust your hoop, readjust your hoop. If not, you can leave it just as it is. So and to kind of help you visually see it, sometimes you can kind of tuck the fabric and just see like, oh yeah, that's centered. I like how that is. And of course, in this moment, I can't tuck it very well. So for example, mine, I'm happy where it is. I'm gonna leave it where it is. I'm gonna just make sure it's completely tight at the top, pull around the edges, make sure I'm fully adjusted, remove my needle. This is why you need a needle minder. I should probably use mine. Make sure it's tight, tighten my nut at the top, and then I'm going to turn it over. We're going to cut away our first piece of fabric, which is our, if you bought the kit or if you just followed the instructions the way that I wrote them, this is your thin cotton, which is the closest to the inside of the circle, and then your Kona cotton is on the outside. So this thin cotton, I am the words today, twisting my tongue. That's not even the right phrase. Okay, let's cut this all the way down to the hoop. So I'm just gonna hold it up, and I try not to push my piece down on the table, because you just don't want to accidentally pull some threads, especially with some of these straight stitches we have. They could get a little wonky. So where did I make that cut? So I cut down, and now I'm just going to cut all the way around and kind of hold your Kona fabric away from your scissors so you don't accidentally cut that. I'm Just cutting all the way around. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but having it closer to the hoop will help give you a tighter fit. Okay, once you've done that, you can look back and see where you might need to cut any more. Get that off of there. Okay, so you can see maybe right about here, it's a little bit off of the hoop. It's not directly flat against there. That's okay. Doesn't have to be perfect. That's my catchphrase. Okay, now we're gonna cut our Kona cotton, but we're not gonna cut it as far. We wanna cut it so that whenever we push the fabric down, it's not gonna hit the fabric down here. So you can play around with it a little bit at first just to see what's a good length. So if I cut right there and I push it down over the edge, I see that it's not going to touch my fabric. So I know this is a good length, and I just follow this all the way around. If you go a little shorter in some spots, not too big of a deal. You do want to make sure you're leaving plenty though to actually glue down. Okay, so now you can take a second, push down all the way around, make sure that you didn't go too long. I could tell I went a little too long over here. I'll just trim it. Push down. Okay, I'm gonna cut a little more right here, and I think went a little low. It's okay. All right, so now we're ready for our glue. Push a little excess fabric away, and let's start gluing. Where did I? Belt circle. Okay, so I like to put, everyone likes to do this a little bit differently. If you prefer to put your hot glue on the inside of this lip, you can do that. I like to put mine right on the top, right here where the flat piece is, and then I will push my fabric over. I just don't like to run the risk of glue hitting at the bottom, and I feel like I've run into that chance by gluing on the inside edge. Okay, sorry, small interruption. So you want to work, I try not to glue too far in advance because your hot glue is going to dry up if you do that. So I work in just kind of a small increment. I'm just pushing that fabric down, and I'm going to run out of glue. I knew that was going to happen. I looked at my glue and I thought, no, I think it should be fine. So hold, let me go get some more glue. Okay, more glue. Let's continue working our way around. And if some of it comes up on the sides, don't worry about that just yet. We'll get around to fixing that. Someone recently mentioned to me these little things you can put on your fingertips to help protect you from getting burns. And that would probably be helpful in this situation. I don't think I burn myself too much anymore, but as I literally almost put my hand right here on the hot part of my glue gun. just a little bit left right here. Okay, once you've gone all the way around, you can then pick up your hoop and see where maybe some pieces right there didn't get quite enough glue. And you can go in, and that's when I will put a little bit on the inside rim because it feels a little more controlled. And I've learned there's a lot of different ways of backing your hoop. Some people like to cut all the way straight, both pieces of fabric all the way down, like what we did with the first piece, but with both of their pieces. And that's originally what I used to do. But now when I look back on some of those pieces, some of them are loose. I don't know if it's exactly if it's because that's the way I cut it, or like because I cut all the way down to finish the hoop, or if that's because that was before I started using 2 pieces of fabric, and so the pieces just weren't thick enough. Try to make sure I keep this in your view in the camera. Okay, I think that's my last little spot that needs to be touched up. All right, so we have our inside fabric glued down, and next we're going to grab our felt. You're going to put it nice and centered, and then you're going to push around the edges, push it down in there. Now, sometimes I just leave it like this because the felt's not going to fall back out, but you can also glue the felt inside, and I like to pick 4 spots evenly distributed to glue it. You could pull back and glue all the edges, but I don't find it necessary. So I'm just going to put 4 dots. Make sure you push it in there. Okay, make sure it's all down. If you want to add more glue, you can. But that's it. I would say that sometimes, especially when backing hoop, like you can see I've got some fabric, like little fuzzies that are kind of stuck on some of the places. You can either use a lint roller. That's what I was trying to think of, a lint roller. But something someone recommended to me recently that I was like, wow, that's genius, is they use washi tape. And I think that's actually better because it's not so big and not quite as strong, because sometimes the lint roller is too strong that I get nervous about using it over like satin stitches and French knots. I'm worried it's going to pull the knots out. And I'm even curious if, I've never tried it, but like, you know, those keyboard dust air blower things. I'm curious if that, you'd have to be careful because I know it gets really cold, so you'd have to hold it up kind of high. But I wonder if even that would help get rid of some of the excess fuzzies. And even the blue tends to, I highly doubt you can see it in the video, but like I have some fuzzies from the blue, and that's a lot more obvious than the white ones. So pick your poison, decide what you like the most, what you would want to kind of gently remove any excess fuzzies. I feel like there's a better word than fuzzies, but that's all I got. All right, so that's the end of our video. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the stitch along, and I can't wait for the next one, and I hope you'll join us.